Recording in progress.
Okay, Brian.
Okay. Good evening. I would like to officially call to order the Tuesday, February 21st, 2023 meeting of the Bolton Conservation Commission. And pursuant to the extension of Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, this public meeting of the Town of Bolton Conservation Commission is being conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but the public can access this meeting while in progress by Zoom Video Communications, Inc. Members of the public attending this meeting virtually will be allowed to make comments if they wish to do so during the portion of the hearing designated for public comment by telephone, cell phone, or personal computer using Zoom. And just some guidelines for those Zoom participants. Please utilize the chat or raise hand function if you wish to address the board. Participants will remain on mute until they are in fact addressed by the board, and participants are required to display their first and last names. All that said, by tradition, we will start with a roll call of present members, and I am Brian Barabee.
Laurie Stevenson.
Bill Payne.
Paul Brandwald.
Jim Garrity.
Rebecca Longball. Or Bachaya.
One of these weeks you're going to
One
get
of
it right.
these times I'm going to.
We're getting there. It's only a couple, what, 2 months and counting?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get there.
I say it for everything else. It's just these meetings. I think it's the rhythm of it.
I think it's that it's public and on the record.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is.
All right. All of that said, so the Bolton Conservation Commission will now open a public hearing. Actually, can I hold on for 1 second? Rebecca, this is a new public hearing for the amendment? Not, all right, because that,
Correct.
okay.
Yep.
So my apologies.
Good question.
So starting fresh, the Bolton Conservation Commission will now open a public hearing to consider a notice of intent under Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Bolton Bylaw, Chapter 233, to consider a notice of intent for an amendment to 727 Main Street, DEP file number 112-0722. Rebecca, is the applicant or a representative for the applicant here this evening?
I do not believe so, but they did send an email prior to the meeting. The representative and the property owner both contacted me and said they're requesting a continuation until our next meeting. They had a couple things to iron out with the contractor and may need to include some additional information in their amendment. So that is their request. Our next meeting is March 7th, and the next open slot is at 7:15.
Okay, I'm assuming that Conservation Commission members are fine with continuing. Is there any member of the public here tonight to comment or had questions about this particular project? And I'm not seeing any. All right,
Nope.
that said, barring any objections from the committee, from the commission, I'd like to make a motion that we continue the public hearing for 727 Main Street, DEP file number 112-0722 until our next public hearing, Tuesday, March 7th at 7:15 p.m. Do I hear a second for continuing?
Second.
All those in favor, starting with Lori,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
and Rebecca, I'm an aye as well.
Thank you. Do you want to address the minutes since we have to wait till 7:15?
I would love to. So for commission members, did you have a chance to read through our February 13th, 2023 meeting minutes? If so, any edits, corrections, or changes? If not, does anybody need any more time to read through the minutes? Rebecca, I can say I didn't have any edits. I did read through them quickly this afternoon, didn't see anything that I thought needed changing. Any commission members need more time or any edits, changes, questions? And seeing none. In that case, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the minutes for our February 13th, 2023 meeting as drafted and presented at this evening's meeting and submitted at this evening's meeting. Do I hear a second for approving minutes?
second,
All those in favor, starting with Lori,
Aye.
Bill,
aye,
Paul,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
and Rebecca, I am an aye as well. Do you want to hit
Sure.
one of the
Yeah.
updates?
Sure.
Okay.
Actually, if you'd like, we can address the vote consideration.
Oh, sorry, I'm back. I would love to. So regarding the Learn to Fish event and for other commission members, I believe we've had this event before. I know it got postponed because of COVID, but then we were able to have it.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, it's a relatively successful event. The people who are teaching it are teaching sustainable methods, proper methods of fishing, and respecting our fisheries ponds. I don't really have any issues with authorizing it to be done again, but I will put it out there to the commission. Does anybody have any questions, comments, concerns?
Where is it being held?
It's being held at Bower Springs. And Brian's correct. It was supposed to be held a couple of years ago at this point. We were able to hold it last year finally, and we had a lot of great feedback, both from the co-host, Mass Wildlife, the Environmental Police, who made an appearance as well, and the attendees and representatives and community members who weren't able to make it, but wanted to know if there was one next year, which is this year. So with all of that good feedback, I did reach out to Mass Wildlife, and they're very for the event. I reached out to the Bolton Conservation Trust to just make sure if they were able to coordinate it into their camp schedule that they could do that. So that's how we landed on this date. And of course, now I'm bringing it to you all to make sure that it can be held and requesting the authorization of that.
All right, sounds good to me.
I was going to say, we usually make the case too that we do allow fishing as one of the passive recreations on a number of our properties. So might as well have somebody at least show people how to do it in a sustainable and environmentally proper way. So that all said, unless there are any objections, I'm going to call for a roll call vote for the commission to authorize to authorize the holding of a Learn to Fish event open to the public and inclusive for all ages, co-hosted by Mass Wildlife with representation from Massachusetts Environmental Police, to be held on Thursday, July 13th, 2023. All those in favor, please say aye. Starting with Lori.
Aye.
Bill,
aye,
Paul,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
and Rebecca, I'm an aye as well.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And there will be obviously notices leading up to that date. If you all wanted to come and learn to fish or hone in your skills, it is open to all ages. With the enforcement order updates, they are the same. We're waiting for some finalization of stabilization for 100 East End Road and 3 John Powers Lane come spring. And then Century Mill Estates, at the next meeting, you should get an updated request from me from the peer review results that we received for, again, our review was specific to wetlands jurisdiction items only. And just an update on that so that you'll know what the fines are. We held the Bolton Trails Connectivity Improvement Project is ongoing at this point until December 2024. So this is both a placeholder, and then you will see updates. Right now, it's just coordinating some work days, finalizing, and then pricing out materials, or confirming the pricing of materials that we had originally anticipated, and speccing of the areas and crossings. Again, just confirmation of what we had already submitted. Then the upcoming, we held it today at noon, hike to Von Hills from the Mullen Trailhead to North Peak. We had a decent group, I think about 6 people, and a couple kids, which was exciting. And it was snowing and slushing and raining, and everybody still seemed to have a pleasant time. So we did have a good group. We were out for just under 2 hours round trip, so it was fun. Quick reminder about Big Night. So Big Night, as the commission's aware, but the public may not be aware, that this is the migration. It's typically over the course of a few nights, but Big Night, it has to have really specific conditions. I got a few calls last week thinking it would occur when we had 2 warm nights in a row. It didn't, and that was encouraging because now the temperatures have dropped again. So typically it occurs in the middle of March, end of March, depending on the conditions, obviously, but so you may see a notice in the paper. Public safety's been notified, and we encourage people to participate and assist with amphibians crossing the road, but not blocking traffic, and making sure that you are playing it safe for yourself and making sure that you're not directing traffic or anything like that. But when vehicles aren't moving on the roadway, documenting and observing what amphibians are crossing in that area and making sure that they're crossing safely. And we're at 7:15, so I want to be mindful of that.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you for the updates. And we'll be watching for the Big Night reminder. I remember bringing the kids to volunteer for Big Nights. It's always fun. All right. So that said, the Bolton Conservation Commission will now open a public hearing under Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Bolton Bylaw, Chapter 233, to consider a notice of intent for 159 Ballville Road, Escalante International, renovations to their existing Pines course. Rebecca, is the applicant or representative for the applicant here this evening?
Yes, I believe so. Is Frank Partland a representative?
Yes,
Okay, hi.
I helped prepare the plans.
Great.
I believe that Kelly Cardoza, who would be doing the presentation, had asked the commission to table this until the end of the public meeting due to a scheduling conflict.
Yep. We have a couple other items we can address, but we do have a fairly short agenda today. So do you think that will be okay if we address those other items, Mr. Chair, and then?
Yeah, I do. I would just say to Frank, it's a rarity that we have a really short agenda this evening.
Yeah, I'm noticing that.
Another hearing at 7:30 that we know is getting continued. And that's really kind of it. So we have some things we can go through. We definitely have to continue that hearing at 7:30. And we can circle back then. I'm not sure if that gives her enough time, but
I will
we'll
see
definitely
if I
circle
can
back
find
and
out,
then we can
Brian.
talk at that point about best way to proceed.
Yes.
Okay. So Rebecca, that said, do you want to cycle back to the updates?
Sure, I don't have many left, but yeah, I can definitely do that. So the next update is the Nashua River Communities Resilient Lands Management MVP program follow-up. So we are, as you all know, we took your comments from last meeting and we are working them into a draft outline and then draft bylaw regulations, which won't be ready obviously for this town meeting, but potentially next town meeting, or if there's a special town meeting. That being said, if you still have any thoughts, because we're working with Clinton as well, we're meeting with the select board on I believe it's March 2nd, to talk about development focus, so less wetlands focused, more development focused zoning regulations planning jurisdiction regulation and select board regulation associated language. And during that meeting, the consultants will be presenting to the board. It'll be a joint meeting. And then they will also be asking for feedback just as they did here. So you have a little bit more time, but not much. If there is any outstanding questions or comments or concerns, what I will say is if you want to attend that meeting and have any suggestions or feedback after that meeting for that specific verbiage, I think that's very important as well, that you provide us with that feedback so that we can incorporate it, even though technically they're not presenting to this board. You're all residents, and so I think it's important to be incorporating that. Then we also have this spring, we're working with a list of about 10 sites to do site visits between Clinton and Bolton. If you were interested in attending those, again, we're still working on the dates to coordinate the dates. But if you would like to attend or be part of those site visits, we definitely encourage that as well. So just let me know and I'll keep you in the loop about when and where those will take place. Regarding opportunities, we still have the volunteer land steward position open, and the open space and recreation plan is initiated in terms of being updated. We do have a core group of subcommittee members who had one meeting. Our next meeting is on Thursday. And right now we are looking through the 2017 open space and recreation plan and just finding some items that need to be updated and just hearing from those community members who are on the subcommittee, taking the kickoff feedback or the kickoff survey and associated feedback, seeing where we can integrate that into the plan update draft. And then from there, we will be scheduling at least 2, if not 3, public outreach opportunities that may look like a workshop on the common, that may look like a Zoom type presentation that will then work with Bolton Access to get that aired, or sharing via social media. So there's a few different things coming up to just keep an eye out for, but we'll be placing notices of that on the town page and community site so people are aware of it. But it is certainly something we want to be coordinating with, like Backyard Bolton, some of the other events that will be occurring throughout the spring, summer, and fall, just to ensure that we're getting the feedback in the best venues that we're able to in that nice community environment.
Excellent. Look forward to it. And yeah, was there a date yet for the select board's meeting?
Yes, to talk about the MVP project. So that is March 2nd, I believe, and I can double check that.
I
and
get
send
their
everybody an
emails.
email.
I'll look and see if we have anything like that on the agenda, but that was an interesting one.
Yep.
And I know we just have a few minutes. When it comes to updating those bylaws, I know it's done by town meeting. It's done at annual town meeting via vote.
Yep.
Usually the select board, I believe, will put in the packet whether they approve or disapprove, right? They have right. Is there another board that does that too? I know usually with budget, it's advisory. But when it comes to bylaws, is there another board we would need to possibly present this to see if they would, to get their take on it?
No,
But
that's
we
a
don't
good.
have to, but
Yeah, that's a good question, Brian. So all articles are reviewed by the select board and advisory. So those are the 2 boards that review. I'm trying to recall from past meetings when planning or zoning has submitted bylaw revisions, whether or not the advisory abstains for some reason. But I believe that they always comment, but I will double check on that as well. But there's not another board that's listed under the article. Like when you look at the warrant, when you get to town meeting,
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
typically select board and advisory
Advisory.
only. Yep. I will, like I said, I will ask that though. But that is part of the reason why we want the select board to be part of it at the forefront. And obviously they've been notified of this grant and they've received some of this documentation, the big scary spreadsheet
Yes.
that we had and website links. So they do have the ability to review it, but where this is development specific regulations bylaw, that some they may be interested in integrating into what they regulate or review regularly, and
Right.
just reviewing it that way. That's why we want to make sure we're presenting that language specifically to them, not only so that they're prompted for it when it does come before them as an article for updating a bylaw, but also to see if they want to integrate any of it into what they currently have for language.
And also, I don't want to trip over their bylaws too, where we put something in where like, this is going to work great. And Board of Health is like, well, then we can't approve a well.
Yeah.
Because, like, no, this is not going to work. And we're tripping over each other's bylaws and who really has jurisdiction. And I'd rather they all integrate, as you were saying. And
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah, I completely understand that one. Yeah, but yes, so March 2nd, and I will double check that date to be sure, but
seeing how we have like 3 minutes to kill. God, I can't think of the name of the property owner. But are there any updates on that property, the farm off Wattaquatic, that had clear cut the stream? They
oh,
had-
the Taylor.
the Taylor, thank you. I know they were selling the property. I know DEP was working on their plan to fix it.
Mhm.
I just haven't had an update. I really haven't been looking for it. I haven't asked you for one
Yeah.
in a long
So-
time on that. And if we have a few minutes, I just don't know if you have a quick update on that, or if you know where it stands.
So the quick update on that is that there were some tickets that were issued, they've paid that. And they are, I believe they might have one, like come spring, they have their last monitoring period. That's part of the enforcement from DEP and
Yep.
Natural Heritage. But to my knowledge, they've been working towards compliance on that. But in terms of their work in compliance with the town, they've met those requirements. But we also backpacked on what DEP and Natural Heritage was requiring because it would be the same.
Right.
And like I said, I believe they had one more observation. I don't know any status on any property transfer responsibility or anything like that, but I do know it runs with the land regarding the restoration requirement. So
I had the pleasure of hiking Gould White. We were out hiking over there.
Nice.
I hadn't been there in a while and walked by that back entrance to us. Oh, geez, I wonder where that stands now.
yeah, no, it's a good question. And I will say to the Conservation Trust, this is related to our walk today.
Yes.
So we're featuring the Summit Series this year as part of our guided hikes. The Bolton Conservation Trust should have partnered on that idea and has actually designed a hat. I was going to say the emblem on the hat. But a hat that people who finish the summits of Bolton, and there's a form on the boltontrails.org website. When you finish the summits in Bolton, you get a hat from the Bolton Conservation Trust. So trying to add a little bit more incentive to be attending the hikes, but then also doing it on your own. You don't have to come with us necessarily, but that I thought was a fun way to get people interested and involved.
Is there a summit for Gould White? I know Taking the entire outer
No, not
perimeter
for
and then
Gold
cutting the
White,
middle.
not for Gold White.
Dang it.
They are, but all the, like I said, on boltontrails.org, they do have the paperwork for it, the form you have to fill out, which has the different summits and the elevations that they are and what trailheads you can go from or access them off of.
No, we're almost there. I hate to put you on the spot, Rebecca, but I should ask, is there any state legislation we should be aware of? I know in the past, we have helped jump on and even individually talk to state legislators about certain conservation laws that were coming up. Anything that you're aware of currently that we should keep on our radar?
I'll take a look. I know not at this very moment, aside from getting if you feel strongly about it, getting remote meetings extended, to paraphrase that, because that's something we don't have an answer for, but we should be getting an answer within the next month or so, if not coming weeks. And then in addition to that, the PLPA just passed. I believe I sent you information, or this year passed. I sent information on that. And that's really a big win for conservation and conservation lands. And it's something that's been necessary. So just going through and making sure we have the right verbiage to make sure that that applies to our conservation properties will be an effort within the next year or two. But
Yeah,
And,
I was a couple of years in the
yeah,
making, basically. So that was excellent to see that pass. And thank you for sharing that information when it did go through.
yeah, no problem.
All right.
Yeah.
I think we have hit the 7:30 mark. So that said, the Bolton Conservation Commission will now continue the public hearing for South Bolton Road, map 2.C, parcel 16, DEP file number 112-0720. And as our legions of loyal fans will know, this particular hearing, they are waiting to hear back from Mass EPA. Until they hear back from them, they're not really going to have an answer for us. So the plan is to continue this until our next public hearing or until we hear back from them. But I do have to put out, are there any members of the public here tonight to comment on this particular hearing? And I see none. Any members of the commission have any reason why we would not want to carry this over? Not seeing any. Like to make a motion that we continue the public hearing for South Bolton Road, map 2.C, parcel 16, DEP file number 112-0720 until our next public hearing, Tuesday, March 7th at 7:30 p.m. Do I hear a second for continuing?
Second.
All those in favor, starting with Lori,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
and Rebecca, I'm an aye as well.
Thank you.
All right, so circling back quickly to Escalante International. Have we picked up a representative?
Yes, I've been asked to pick this up as much as I can. I was expecting to be driving on the presentation plans, but I will do my best to at the very least kick off the project.
That is excellent.
So if I may, do I have permission to share my screen?
You do, Rebecca. Could you allow Frank to? All right, perfect. Sorry.
Make sure I'm all right. So what you should see there is a large aerial of the course and the extent of the work. I'll be referring to that shortly, but just to kick off the project, the the NOI for Escalante was submitted on behalf of the applicant by Avalon Consulting Group. Much of it was pulled together by Kelly Cardoza, who hopefully will be joining us later this evening. In addition, much of this information came from some people who may or may not be connected with us at the moment. Bruce Reckup, who is within Escalante in Texas. Paul McManus from Ecotech, who is on with us. Paul and his firm mapped the wetlands at the site and prepared the planting and restoration plans for the project. Frank McPartland, with Dillis and Roy, prepared much of the NOI plans that were submitted to you, the improvements plan and the grass and plantings plan. Our golf construction firm is Landscapes Unlimited, who's the representative there is Brian Vitek. He's the COO at Landscapes, and he's also local. He lives about 40 minutes away from the project. And potentially finally we have Michael Galvin, who is the general contractor superintendent, and he's the person who's going to oversee construction and will manage the property once the consultants are all gone. We have submitted the notice of intent under the WPA and the Bolton Wetlands bylaw for the restoration of the existing Pines Golf Course. The plans that we submitted show existing conditions, proposed work, which would be the C1 series sheets, and then how the area will be grassed and replanted, which generally was under the C2 sheets. A little bit of history on the course itself. The 18-hole Pines Golf Course at the International was originally constructed as the 9-hole Runaway Brook Golf Club in 1899. An 18-hole golf course was constructed in its place, opening in 1955, which was apparently the longest golf course in the world at that time. Runaway Brook flows through the Pines Golf Course, parts of it with rock-covered concrete walls that are in disrepair. The edges of these water bodies within the course limits are generally planted with turf grasses that are mowed or weed whacked right down to the water's edge. Some areas that are mapped as bordering vegetated wetlands exist and have been maintained as managed turf for the life of the golf course. The bunker edges, for the most part, have been carefully manicured, and there is about currently 250,000 square feet of asphalt cart path. The renovation of the Pines course is part of a revitalization of the International undertaken by Escalante, who purchased the property out of bankruptcy in February of 2021. We were before you previously for updates to the 18-hole Oaks Golf Course in 2021, and the owners proposed to restore and reimagine the 18-hole Pines course and to upgrade existing infrastructure, including outdated drinking water, irrigation water, and wastewater systems at the facility as part of this current project. The new layout of the Pines Golf Course was reimagined by Core and Crenshaw Golf Course architects, who envisioned constructing an 18-hole course approximately 7,000 yards long with approximately 80 acres of maintained turf, which is actually a reduction of approximately 65 acres of turf across the 18-hole golf course. Just over 9 acres of turf grasses, both irrigated and non-irrigated, are identified within the plan set within the jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission. And that's the proposed condition. That's 7.8 acres less than under existing conditions. So for the most part, a lot of what's happening out there is a reduction of managed grasses, whether they're irrigated or non-irrigated. The Pines course will ultimately have a more rustic feel with compact transitions between the greens and tees. So overall, a smaller footprint. Core and Crenshaw proposed to wed the holes to the ground in a natural way, making subtle changes to the existing grades and working with the existing topography. Native sand from the site will be used to construct the course fairways and tees and fill in the bunkers. There will be a rustic, less maintained feel to bunkers edges and wetland edges. We're proposing a 10-foot wide minimum area that will only be mowed annually in the fall to provide a reduction in active maintenance near the wetlands, while maintaining growth of woody vegetation to maintain while managing the growth of woody vegetation to maintain golf playability. As part of this project, maintained areas are being naturalized, but no natural areas are being converted to golf. So there will be an addition of naturalized areas. There will not be a subtraction from this for golf purposes. Before we look at the specific plan areas, I'd like to kind of describe further how the course will be grassed. This has a significant impact in how much water will be used in the future and how much mowing and management will occur under the proposed changes to the course. Turf grasses have been selected for their drought tolerance and disease resistance to reduce the need for supplemental irrigation and require less ongoing management. These areas are shown on the plans as proposed turf grass. Outside the limits of maintained turf, once established, grasses will not be irrigated or mowed regularly during the growing season. The non-irrigated areas will fall into the following categories. These categories have been flagged on the plans that was submitted to the commission. These categories are NITG, which stands for non-irrigated turf grasses, of which there are approximately 3.6 acres within the commission jurisdiction. These will be immediately outside the maintained turf. There will be a band of the same grasses, which is not irrigated. So this would be the same turf grass that's within the fairways, but the main difference is the fairways would be irrigated. This area would not. These grasses would serve as a transition to the naturalized and native grass areas within the site. We also have NIAM, which is non-irrigated annual mowing grasses, of which there's approximately 5.2 acres within the commission jurisdiction. This grass will be a blend of naturalized turf grasses and native grasses, and will be planted in areas between trees and fairways, or areas that are outside of play. These proposed meadow areas will not be irrigated and will be mowed annually after the aster and milkweed have bloomed, except for within the limits of walk paths. The grass mix will include beacon hard fescue, minimus hard fescue, blue hornet sheep fescue, quattro sheep fescue, purple love grass, little blue stem, Indian grass, showy aster, milkweed, and broom sedge. We also have what we've designated as NGAM, which are native grasses annual mowing. There are approximately 2.6 acres of this category within the commission jurisdiction. These will be native grasses that thrive in poverty soils. After establishment, they will not be fertilized or irrigated, and they will be mowed annually to maintain the growth of woody vegetation. These grasses will include hard fescue, red fescue, purple lovegrass, little blue stem, Indian grass, showy aster, milkweed, and broom sedge. So there's definitely a commonality in the plantings. However, the main difference is whether or not they're irrigated and how often it's maintained. We also have called out on the plans areas of wet meadow, approximately 0.3 acres, that will consist of maintained golf turf. Some areas, the 0.3 acres that currently consist of maintained golf course turf that have been mapped as bordering vegetated wetland, which is near holes 14 and 15, which I can flag once we walk through those plans, will be replanted with native vegetation as detailed in the wetland planting specifications, Appendix D of the application package. This area will be maintained at a maximum height of approximately 2 feet. There will be a shrub swamp area that's a portion of existing turf BVW, approximately 4,000 square feet. That area will be planted and maintained as a shrub swamp. The shrub swamp area will be planted as outlined in the wetland planting specifications, also Appendix D, and maintained to a height of 4 to 6 feet through annual hand trimming of the wooded vegetation. We also call out a forested swamp area. This is all within kind of the same limits of hole 14 and 15. A portion of the existing turf BVW, 3,600 square feet, will be planted and maintained as a forested swamp. The forested swamp area will be planted as outlined again in Appendix D of the application package, and will be allowed to grow with no active maintenance or height limitations. So no cutting, no maintenance. Once it's planted, we're done in that area. There are tree and shrub buffer zones and adjacent upland resource areas. A portion of the existing maintained upland, approximately 24,800 square feet, will be planted and maintained as a natural forested and shrub, that's tough, upland buffer. That area, again, wetland will be planted per wetland planting specification Appendix D. Some of the other key areas of work that we've outlined in the project are on the cart and maintenance paths. Wherever possible on the pines, asphalt carts will be removed and replaced with cart paths constructed from reclaimed asphalt from the site, surfaced with a mix of sand and gravel, or surfaced with a mix of sand and gravel from the site. 1/3 of an acre of gravel cart path and 1/2 acre of asphalt cart path is proposed, as compared to the existing conditions where there are 0.2 acres of gravel grass cart path and 1.1 acres of asphalt cart path. A wooden guardrail is proposed along an area of existing cart path that will be restored to keep golfers on the path. This area runs through a wetland, which again, I can flag. There are existing rock walls along surrounding Runaway Brook within the golf course. These will be repaired and retained. There's approximately 1,150 linear feet of these walls that will be fixed. There will be daylight flow between 2 of the ponds. An open stream, approximately 100 linear feet, will be constructed across an existing fairway between 2 existing ponds with a control structure installed to maintain the hydrology. In order for walking golfers to cross this newly daylighted stream, a wooden footbridge is proposed. The bridge will be installed at the location of the existing cart path, which was shown on sheet C1.4 of the plans that accompanied the application. There will be a block retaining wall forming the bank of an existing pond that will be removed, and this area will be regraded, and the pond bank we planted with native vegetation. Realizing as I'm rambling through here, I can flag some of these areas as best I can. Stepping back a second to the guardrail along the existing cart path, that will be, excuse me as I switch plans. That will be along an existing gravel cart path that runs between wetland series H and wetland series I. And there will be a guardrail running along here, more or less to keep golfers on the path. The flow, the new stream between the 2 ponds would be between wetland series, the pond with wetland series H and the pond with wetland series G, or wetland series H and wetland series G. It's approximately 100 feet long. There'll be flow from pond G through to pond H, controlled with an outlet control structure. This was detailed on sheet C3.1 of the application package. And there will be a wooden footbridge in this location. And that follows the same alignment of the existing asphalt cart path that has since been removed. Jumping back to kind of more overview items, as part of the project, potable water supply, irrigation water supply, and the wastewater collection system will be expanded to manage and treat flow from the remote buildings at the site. The piping within the jurisdiction of the commission was shown on the notice of intent plans. Potable water for the facility will be supplied by a connection to the Clinton Water Department, and the existing potable water distribution system will be abandoned in place. A state-of-the-art automatic irrigation system will be installed and will be fed from the existing lined irrigation pond and irrigation wells through the existing pump station. The irrigation system will allow application of water with increased consistency and control, so that only areas that require irrigation will be watered. This will replace the 1970s era irrigation system, which will be removed where grading is proposed or otherwise will be abandoned in place. Wastewater from the remote structures on the property, the Pine Snack Bar, the Oak Snack Bar, and the maintenance facility will be collected and conveyed to the on-site wastewater treatment plant. This will allow for the abandonment of existing Title V subsurface absorption systems serving these structures. These SAS systems for the Oaks and the Pine Snack Bars are currently located about 120 to 140 feet from the delineated wetlands. A lot of that work for the installation of the water lines and the irrigation lines and the wastewater lines will be done as much as possible through the use of trenchless technology, where we'll have sending and receiving pits for these pipes in locations outside of the jurisdictional areas. So for much of that work for the irrigation line at hole 14, there will be a sending pit here and a receiving pit here, and that will be outside of jurisdictional area, both the buffer zone and the stream corridor buffer, the outer riparian zone. Similarly, for the water main, it will be launched. There will be a sending and receiving pit, which will be located outside of the jurisdictional areas. Because the force main has been the alignment of the new force main will not be crossing wetlands. It will be just kind of crossing along jurisdictional areas, external buffers that will be put in through normal trenchless means. No, excuse me, normal trenching means for the most part. Excuse me. I'll take a sip. So now I'm going to try to present the work areas, unless Paul has anything he'd like to add about kind of a general overview of what's going to be planted out there.
No, I think you've done a great job, Frank. I just clarify one thing for the commission. Frank used the term of turf BVW, and turf BVW is a term of my own, which is basically areas of maintained turf, which for the most part look like upland, but which we delineate based on the presence of hydric soils and altered vegetation. So that's not a term from the regs, but I think it's a useful term, you know, to distinguish what it is. So that's my only comment right now.
Thank you. Now I'm orienting myself, you can see the aerial here, correct? Okay, good.
Yes.
What we have here is, this is the proposed hole 1. You can see the hole markers in blue with the new hole 1 green is this area here. South of that is a wetland complex. Wetland flags, the BP flag series. Our work. So the work at this hole, between the hole 1 green and the hole 2 T, would be to regrade the existing green, modify bunker locations, eliminate approximately 2,800 square feet of existing asphalt cart path south of the golf hole, and convert 600 and convert that area to 600 square feet of, and I'm going to throw acronyms back at you. I apologize if they get lost, but 600 square feet of NGAM, the native grass annual mowing, and the 2,200 square feet of NITG, which is a non-irrigated turf grass, as a refresher. We'll be removing and replacing approximately 1,800 square feet of asphalt cart path. This is due to the steep slope in this area. Wherever possible, as previous said, we're removing asphalt, but if it's in an area where of significant slopes, where it's not feasible to put back gravel or reclaimed asphalt, we're going to maintain the asphalt cart path. We will be converting approximately 20,100 square feet of turf on new holes 1 and 2 to NIAM and NITG. We will stop maintaining the turf along the slope and under the trees, and to encourage the regrowth of native plants. And this will be overseeded as needed. There are 2 trees being removed at the edge of the existing cart path, 2 16-inch DBH pine trees. These are here and here, just south of the existing path that's going to be removed, and just north of the wetland. They're within the 100-foot wetland buffer. There'll be we'll be installing irrigation in the new turf areas only, and then establishing non-irrigated grassing using portable temporary irrigation just for the establishment. Once it's growing and fine, the irrigation for the non-irrigated grasses will stop. Find hole 14, which is this hole here south of what we've designated as wetlands K, L, M, N, and O. In this hole, it used to be the 7th hole, this which was turfed, mowed, and weed whacked right down to the edge of the water. So this would be example of what Paul had termed the turf BVW. Historically maintained for as long as there's been a golf course out here. The proposed work, when they're renovating this hole, is to remove 5 trees from the BVW within the wetland end. So that's a 5 trees within this area. The 28-inch, 16-inch, 24, 2 24s, and a 26-inch tree. So 3 maple trees I'm seeing in my notes now, 2 24 inches and a 16-inch, and then 2 pine trees, a 26 and a 28-inch. The restoration, they would stop maintaining the turf area within the BVW, and they'll be removing existing turf grasses and invasive species and then replanting the area either as wet meadow, shrub swamp, or forested swamp. You can see the limits of that on this grass and planting plan. When I zoom over. So this is that same area. Clear this up real fast for you so you can see. Wrong one. Trying to get rid of the blue for a second, but there is a. I don't know if that highlights it for you, but you can see the limits of what would be wet meadow within N, and then shrub swamp along the brook, and then forested swamp on the north side. And these were laid out with the assistance of Paul McManus. So they're species are well selected, and the areas were well delineated.
And the Frank, excuse me, the area north of the forested swamp is the buffer zone naturalization area.
Yes, correct. Thank you, Paul. So there is additional buffer zone naturalization where they would be what are you doing there, Paul? They're gonna let it. We're gonna stop maintaining it, let native species grow, and encourage native species if needed.
You're right. Well, it'd be planting of natives in there, and then as Frank described in general, planting a native species in there. Once things are going, then just walk away and let it go wild.
Thank you, Paul.
Mhm.
Coming back to the improvements for hole 14. So the snack. Excuse me. Yes. So the existing hole 14 tees fairway rough and green, and 15 tees in fairway and pine snack bar represent this area here. The work here will include the installation of the sewer force main for the Oaks snack bar, which is this. Wait a minute, excuse me. Got my courses mixed up. Oaks would be over here, so we will be bringing the force main for the Oaks snack bar through the work zone and the buffer zones. Shaping the 14T complex, which would be these areas here, as well as here. We would be regrading and shaping those T areas, eliminating the existing hole 8 green and converting that area to non-irrigated grasses. Constructing 1,200 square feet of new asphalt cart path, again because of the steep slopes in this area, and removing and replacing approximately 10,100 square feet of existing asphalt cart path. We would be removing another 900 square feet of existing asphalt cart path and converting that to gravel, and then removing another 3,700 square feet of asphalt cart path, converting that to turf. Removing another 3,250 square feet of asphalt cart path and converting that to the native grasses annual mowing, and removing 5,150 square feet of asphalt cart path and converting that to non-irrigated annual mowing. And this is all well documented within the application in case some of the numbers are glossing you over. We would be constructing an additional 8,200 square feet of gravel / grass cart path. So some of the walking areas will just be grass. Some will be gravel. And then constructing the previously discussed open stream channel and footbridge in the location of the existing gravel cart path to the as we come down towards into hole 17. Now we'll be reconstructing and refacing the masonry walls in this area. This work primarily will occur in the wetlands that we've designated as K, L, and M. These wetlands and streams are ringed with existing stone walls that have started to crumble. So the course is looking to repair those. The plan there is to do that in the dry as much as possible. They'll be using a combination of stop logs and sandbag pumping systems to pump the stream around the work zones. It might be over several working sessions. It probably wouldn't be all done in one pumping. However, they're confident that they'll be able to get that done kind of in the dry. Convert and maintain area between wetland end and runaway brook to NGAM. So wetland end. Lost my mouse. So that's what Paul brought up. Wait a minute. NGAM remove invasives and oversee with native grasses. So if I flip back to the grass and planting plan, the area that would be this. Between N and NGAM, sorry, N and runaway brook. So that would be the NGAM grassing within this area. There will also be a removing invasives and overseeding with native grasses. At the 17T area, there will be removal of following trees and stumps. So the new 17T, which would be down by the newly constructed stream, would be 3 28-inch pines, a 24-inch twin pine, and then in the fairway area 2 24-inch pines and stumps. Apologies as I find that's this area up here. So north of wetlands G and H. This more or less this cluster of trees at the longer drive tees for hole 17. And then in the hole 17 fairway area, there'll be 2 24-inch pines and stumps. Irrigation will be installed in new turf areas only. And then they'll be establishing the non-irrigated grasses, again, using the portable temporary irrigation. Let me jump up to hole 15. Which used to be the 8th hole, which was turfed, mowed and we whacked right down to the edge of the water. The restoration here would be for the course to stop maintaining the turf area in the BBW of wetlands H and J, which this is the H wetland. So in this case, it would be kind of this perimeter of the wetlands. They would be removing the existing turf grasses and invasive species and replanting some of that area as wet meadow, approximately 8,500 square feet. So that planting area, which is flagged as wet meadow. Jump back to the planting plan. That's this area here. Kind of within the wetland, within the limits of the wetland itself. As well as this area here. These areas are all well defined on the plans by erosion controls. So they'll be very easy for the contractor to understand their limits of work. Holes 17 and 18, which were the existing 17 and 18 holes. As I navigate down to that, holes 17 and 18 will be regraded. There will be a 12-inch maple will be removed within the existing maintained turf. 20-inch oak will also be removed within the turf. We are removing the stormwater discharge to wetland D. So there was a stormwater discharge coming from the oaks down the slope and then piped into wetland D. That has been intercepted outside of the jurisdiction of the commission and will be handled as sheet flow through the woods and across the course prior to getting to D. So we're eliminating that piped connection. Approximately 98,000 square feet of maintained turf will be converted to non-irrigated turf grasses, and another 51,000 square feet to native grasses annual mowing. 1,600 square feet of asphalt cart path will be converted to gravel cart path, and we will be removing another 6,600 square feet of asphalt cart path and converting that to 1,850 square feet of turf and 4,750 square feet of non-irrigated annual mowing. As far as construction timing and our construction methods and kind of the future management of the course, erosion control will be installed prior to beginning the work and will include straw wattles. Where grades exceed a 3-on-1 slope, this area will also be stabilized using a geotextile fabric, and erosion control will remain in place until the area is stabilized. That geotextile fabric will primarily is expected to be used on the hole 14 tees. That's an area of slope, flat, slope, flat, slope. So we wanted to provide extra reinforcement there, as well as at an area on wetland series G, we are removing an existing retaining wall and then regrading the slope. That will end up being a 3-on-1 slope, and we wanted to make sure that that was reinforced. All equipment will be refueled outside of jurisdictional areas during the construction period. Extent of work areas within the 100-foot buffer zone to the BVW and the Bolton adjacent upland resource areas. Work will be conducted in discrete areas to limit the overall disturbance of the site. So that they're not gonna roll through and open it all up and make a mess. It's gonna be planned and controlled. They want this to be as seamless an operation as possible. Tree removal, 9 trees are proposed to be removed from these buffer and adjacent upland resource areas. There's a 20-inch oak that is located outside but close to the 100-foot buffer zone and is also included in the tree removal table in the application document. It's outside of the buffer, but we wanted to flag it just so that everyone was aware. Tree limbs and slashing will be chipped into a truck and transferred outside of the area subject to jurisdiction of the commission. Stumps will be pulled and transferred to an area outside of the jurisdiction of the commission and then ground using a tub grinder. Except in I believe there's some where we say that we were going to leave the stump. But if the stump is coming out, it'll be pulled and transferred outside of the jurisdiction. Any chipping and ground material will be transferred off-site for reuse as a heating source or for composting. As far as the asphalt removal goes, the management of existing asphalt cart paths will depend on the future proposed use at the locations. Where cart paths, either asphalt or gravel, will be located at the same location as the existing asphalt. The existing material will be ground in place to serve as the base for the new cart path. Where the area occupied by the asphalt will become turf or native grasses, the asphalt will be removed and taken to a location outside of the jurisdiction of the commission for processing. Existing turf removal, existing turf grasses will be cut using a sod cutter and removed from the buffer, enabling the planting of native vegetations. Sod will be moved to another portion of the site outside of the jurisdiction of the commission for composting and management. Once an area is graded, it will be seeded as shown on the submitted plans and as described in the table 5, which I can read through as needed. The majority of the site will be hydroseeded, which will immediately stabilize the area. The upland area between Wetlands O and Runaway Brook to the north will be overseeded to reduce the impacts of this narrow strip of land. So Wetland O and Runaway Brook, I believe heard the notes are talking about this narrow strip, which that will be overseeded so that it's not being given the narrow configuration, so that it's we're limiting any potential issues there. If you like, I could go through the proposed grass mixes for greens and tees and fairway. That's documented in the application, but in general, that the grass mixes will all be hydroseeded with a tackifier, with the exception of the some of the native grasses annual mowing, which would be slice seeded into the existing grasses.
Frank, this is Paul. Can you go back to pond G?
Yes.
You went through that real quick. I just want to make sure the commission understands what's proposed.
Certainly, yes.
So at that point, in the area where there's a crosshatch, there's an existing, the pond bank at that point is a vertical block wall that's obviously been there for a long time. Right there. Thank you. And the plan is to remove that block wall, bring the grades back, no fill into the pond, but cutting back into the slope behind what is the existing wall, and then that area would then be planted with wet meadow vegetation. So that's an elimination of, I don't know, how many linear feet do you remember offhand, Frank?
Offhand, no, but I can measure that real quick. It's approximately 240 linear feet of wall being removed.
Yeah, so you just passed through that quick. I just wanted to make sure the commission understood.
Yep.
Thanks.
Thank you, Paul. Yeah, and it's definitely we're cutting back. We're not filling into the pond. As far as drainage goes on the course, second, let me get rid of my. As far as drainage goes on the course, the project plans call for drainage to be maintained as surface flow or connected to existing drainage within the Pines Golf Course. The proposed project results in an overall decrease in impervious coverage. Existing drainage will be retained, except for the drain that was installed to collect stormwater from the Oaks course that discharges beneath existing and future hole 17 into wetland D, which I had flagged for you, this pipe coming into wetland D here. In the middle of that wetland complex.
If I could just hop in, sorry, I'm. late.
Hello, Kelly.
For the record, my name
Certainly.
is Kelly Durfee Cardoza. I'm with Avalon Consulting Group. And I apologize for being late. That was a drain that we examined as part of the Oaks analysis. And I know it was Rebecca and Emily. I don't know who else was there at the time, and Paul as well. So that's the drain that he's discussing, Rebecca.
Thank you. Yeah. So, surface flow.
I'm happy to take on from here if that works for people.
Certainly, Kelly.
Okay. So
I'm fine with that. Yeah, no, that's perfectly fine. Yeah, Kelly, if you want to introduce yourself quickly again, and I was
Sure.
going to say, Frank's gotten through a lot of it too. I don't want you to have to reiterate anything that he went through before you got here.
we,
But I appreciate you taking over. Like, again, if you just want to introduce yourself quickly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, my name is Kelly Durfee Cardoza. I'm with Avalon Consulting Group, and I represent the applicant. And we knew that this might be an issue with the change in dates. So we tried to make this as seamless as possible, and I trust that Frank and Paul hopped in where needed. One of the things about the cart paths is that they're going to be 8 feet wide, except where a pull-up or a passing area is needed, and that's been noted on the plans for you. Basically, cart paths are going to be constructed of a ground asphalt base. We're going to reuse the asphalt that's there, covered by a blend of on-site sand and soil. So the gravel cart paths will have a cobble edge, and where topography is steep, we will be keeping the cart paths that are asphalt or replacing them at different locations. Some asphalt cart paths will be edged with a Cape Cod berm, and that really is if we need to control runoff on slopes or prevent erosion. And then, Frank, if you could pull up where the wooden guardrail is proposed. So this is an existing cart path that's existing, and it was an area that we looked at when we looked at the Oaks, because that's when these wetlands were flagged. And I'm assuming you may have talked about it, but maybe not, that you'll probably be doing a site visit. But we have proposed that there be a wooden guardrail from the bridge at this location around, so that there's not a question. There used to be a cut through. You can see it shows in the wetlands delineation here, where people would drive through the wetland, and we're trying to discourage that from the future. So there will be a guardrail that'll take care of that there. Removal of the concrete block retaining wall. I think you did that discussion. So the next thing I think we want to talk about is the connection of the stream, or the creation on the daylighting of the stream to connect wetlands G and H. So under existing conditions, they're connected by a pipe, and you can see that, Frank, if you point that out, it's just the thin gray pipe that's there to maintain water levels between the two wetland areas.
That's this line here.
And so that one's going to remain in place. But in addition, what we're trying to do here is add an open stream channel to enhance wildlife habitat connectivity. The stream will be about 1 foot to 3 feet deep and 2 feet to 4 feet wide, and it's about 100 feet long. The intent is to naturalize that, to maintain the hydrology of the upstream pond, which is this one here, G. The proposed stream channel will have a control structure. And I'm assuming that we'll be able to look at these things in the field to identify those locations, but that's shown on sheet C 3.1. The stream bed will be graded and planted with the banks and bottom of the stream planted with New England wet mix or equivalent. And we have wetland planting specifications that were provided in Appendix D. And then for walking golfers to cross over this newly daylighted stream. So this cart path, and I'm pointing, but you can't see me pointing. So that cart path right there gets taken away. But what we are proposing is a small wooden footbridge. It'll be installed at that location of where the cart path is right now. And Frank, do you
I
have
was
a?
to say, Kelly, I hate to cut you off, but Frank was kind of, we did go through some of these things already. On the last two things you touched on, we kind of went through already earlier in the meeting, which I appreciate you going through them
No,
again.
I don't want to waste.
No, it's perfectly
I don't
fine.
wanna waste-
I'm just, what I was gonna say is, you alluded to yourself, this is probably gonna require a site visit. I would like to possibly set up, I know for myself, I'd like to go see, and I can go through a number of the things you touched on, and I think you guys highlighted some of the things that we would definitely want to see. Yeah, and I was gonna say, and I appreciate you guys sending along the packet. Appreciate you telling me total tree removal was 9, and the planning plans, it was good to see the planning plans and what was actually in them. I was kind of looking through them a little bit earlier, but I kind of want to have a chance to look through them some more. And like I said, I hate to cut you off, but I just time-wise, I hate to go through these things again. Commission members have any initial questions, comments, or thoughts?
One question, Brian, on the wastewater system. Is that a new system or are you tying into the Oaks system? I wasn't clear on that.
So there's a system now that manages all of the flow from the hotel and the conference center and the clubhouse. But the areas within your jurisdiction have been Title V systems, and that's at the Pine Snack Bar and the Oak Snack Bar. What we're doing now is we're actually piping that back to the treatment plant.
Okay.
So we'll be abandoning the Title V systems.
Oh,
And
okay,
then
great.
the treated flow, the effluent will go into the treatment plant and then be treated to a much higher level, certainly than in a Title V system.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Other initial comments, questions, or thoughts? See, Rebecca, did you have any initial comments or thoughts? I'm sure you'd like to get out in the field too. I know you like to reserve judgment until then, but any initial thoughts or comments or something you would like to see highlighted in the field?
No, I think some of my initial thoughts are associated with potential conditioning of this project. But definitely seeing things in the field would be very helpful and make things more clear. The connection, so Jim actually asked the question I had about the wastewater. And then the other was about the connection to the Clinton system for public potable water, or not public potable water, but potable water for your site here. And I was curious if there was any implications to resource area or buffer zone for that connection.
So we will be, did you identify where the piping is? I mean, the piping to connect to the Oaks and the Pines, as you know, we'll be needing to put piping through there. And there's also a pipe shown that will be installed via horizontal directional drilling. Because that's how we have to get from Clinton across the golf course.
Yeah,
So
I flagged that Kelly. Within the limits of work around hole 14, yeah.
So that's the implication there. It's a fairly long process to go through this, but the reason is because the PFAS numbers are fluctuating in the public water supply that provides drinking water to the buildings on the property.
Okay, thank you. So I guess my question was, and Frank, thank you for pointing that out again regarding where it goes across the Pines. My question was if it extends over, and sorry, I wasn't specific enough, if it extends over any of the Oaks course or any other portion of the site, and if that runs through any jurisdictional areas.
It does not,
Uh,
no. Any
Okay,
jurisdictional work for this project is shown in these notice of intent plans.
okay, thank you. And then the last item was just a clarification. So Kelly, you and I had talked about this, and I think Paul weighed in on this too, potentially offline, maybe between you two, but this, the notice of intent is not inclusive of confirmation of the resource area. Is that correct in terms of the resource area delineation? I do know some of the flagging had already been confirmed for the Oaks course through the ORED process. But I just want to make sure that I interpreted this correctly and it was communicated properly, that as part of this notice of intent, it's specific to the work proposed, not confirmation of resource area delineation. Would that be accurate?
It is, and so we tried to be clear in the application. There's shading in the areas where those lines have already been delineated as part of the Oaks, because, you know, as you know, the Oaks and the Pines, they kind of are very close. But there are some areas like in the Twin Springs area where there's very limited amount of work, but we did show you where those wetlands were, but we're not asking you to approve those delineations.
Okay. I just wanted to make that clear for any upcoming site visits, so we don't have to worry about that in the field. And that's what I have for now, Brian.
Okay.
I'd also like to have a little bit more time to read through. Actually, excuse me, my last comment was relative to the species proposed to be planted. I know you have Paul on this and a few other specialists who are well-versed in native invasive species, and if they have a question on it, to send it to someone for review. Just being cautious. I know milkweed was mentioned a few times, and just making sure that we're, when you're planting things or putting things in that Appendix D, to ensure that they're not introducing an invasive species on accident, particularly with any of the more herbaceous species. I know sometimes those are a little bit more difficult to identify, or common knowledge, I guess. But that is all for now, Brian, for real this time.
Perfectly fine.
And we have taken care to keep our plant lists appropriate. But you know, those lists are you know, my view of you know, what I think is good and would work. But there's certainly, you know, there's certainly room for adjustment there if somebody has feelings one way or the other.
All right. Can I ask, are there any members of the public here tonight that have questions or here to comment on this particular hearing? No.
So Brian,
Paul, go ahead.
yeah, I just have the one area we didn't touch on yet, and I'm just curious what the work is going to be. It's around the existing holes 11. There's a big pond, 13 and 14. There are areas that might be considered wetlands. I don't know if it's any. If you want to just touch on those quickly.
So the 11th hole, that's a lined pond, and so it's not jurisdictional. There are two areas of lined ponds here, and there's also a lined pond further to the north. If you can keep going up and a little bit to the right, Frank, you can see it's right up there. So those are all lined, and so they are not jurisdictional.
Good question, Paul. That's something I'm sure we could go out and just confirm as well, if you felt comfortable or you would rather do that, Paul. But
What's
thank you
Yeah,
for that.
what's the definition of lined?
The lined pond, they're lined with a PVC liner, so it's a plastic liner. Those, the ponds, this large one that you can see here, that was installed about 20 years ago. Before that, it was an upland. And so now there was a plastic liner put in there, and that was put in to manage irrigation. So the water from the irrigation wells pumps into that pond, and then it goes through a pump station, and it takes the water for both fire suppression and for irrigation and disperses it across the property. The pond further to the north is lined with clay. And these ponds have been, that one in particular that he's showing you now, has been there since the 50s.
So I guess I'm not quite sure why it's not jurisdictional, but that may be a discussion we can have separately.
Yeah, and that may be a question maybe Paul could provide a little bit of, Paul McManus might be able to provide a little bit of information on if he wanted to.
Sure, I'm happy to. So as Kelly said, these are areas that were excavated and lines. They are essentially, equivalent to really big lined swimming pools. There's a plastic liner that's laid on the ground. I know on the larger one, there's spots on the perimeter where I've actually seen the liner a little bit. They do, especially the smaller one, which has been there longer, does have some vegetation growing in it. But the regs are very clear in that, that in the definition of a pond at 10.04, that lines, lines features such as this that are not connected to the groundwater are not considered ponds.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you.
Any other additional or initial questions or comments from commission members? Not seeing any right now. So if possible, Kelly, could we try to organize a site visit to get out there? I was gonna say, I think we touched on a number of things. You touch, especially, around the areas around holes 14 and 15, the pond off 16 where we're removing the wall and turning it to bank. Some of those key areas. I had some questions about, net areas of like net gain or net loss. It looks like for the most part, it's going to be net gain as far as conservation goes, but to point out some of those areas in the field that are going to be allowed to renaturalize. I was gonna say a lot, I think you already have flagged out there. That's just kind of what I had on my initial notes. And again, appreciate the packet. I did start reading through it today. I need to read through it in a lot more depth. But if you're fine with that, would love to schedule a site visit and get out there and actually take a look.
Absolutely. And I just want to clarify what you want staked. So what we have staked out there right now is the connection for wastewater, the connection for public water supply, because those are pipes. That was very easy. All of the wetlands are flagged, but that's as much for all of us as it is for you to know. Most of the holes are, there's an identification of where those holes are, but we do not have, and I just want to be clear, we do not have every single limit of turf and every bunker and everything else staked. So I think because we have such a great aerial, it's pretty easy. We can stand here and say, this is where the 14th tees are going to be. That's the bridge that's there. We'll be able to show you. But every single feature at this point is not staked. And I want to make sure that there's no surprises.
I'm perfectly fine, and other commission members can speak up if they have an issue. But yeah, no, completely understandable. And I'm perfectly fine with that. Like you said, if we're out there with the area, we can actually kind of point out the areas. I think I'm perfectly fine with that. I'm trying to think if there was anything specific I wanted to see marked out.
Brian,
Go ahead, Rebecca, please.
just interjecting quickly, are the trees that are proposed to be removed flagged in any way?
They are.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so I think I would be perfectly fine with that. Any commission members concern or any specific item that commission members would like to see marked out in the field that wasn't already discussed as having been marked, or you don't think you'd be able to see it via the aerial on site? I'm not seeing anything. And Rebecca, same question to you. Is there anything specifically you'd like to see marked? That we haven't already discussed marking specifically?
I guess just a clarification question again, is the proposed guardrail area or the bridge and daylighting of the stream marked in the field?
Yes,
Okay, thank you. So no, then Brian, I think the rest we can identify, like Kelly was describing with the aerial and being in the field for
Okay.
physical reference points.
Okay. In that case, I'll probably make a motion to continue in a minute. And usually what we'll do is Rebecca will kind of reach out to the commission and reach out to you, Kelly, and other members of your team to try to see if we can't set up a date before our next meeting to get everybody out there. And put a few dates out there. Unfortunately, we missed the warm weather. So we'll have a nice little cold site visit one day, but everybody's good about bundling up and hopefully we avoid the snow. So that said, I'd like to make a motion that we continue the public hearing for 159 Ballville Road, Escalante International, until our next public meeting, Tuesday, March 7th at 7:45 p.m. Do I hear a second for continuing?
Second.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, Kelly, please.
my husband's retiring and a year ago we planned a vacation. I'm not going to be there on the 7th.
I was to say, that's perfectly fine. Will another rep be, I mean, we can always move it to a different meeting. I'm sure you'd want to keep the 7th, but if another rep can be present, that would be excellent.
Paul and
Great.
Frank can be here, but
Okay.
I'd like to be present at the site visit if that's possible.
Absolutely. I wouldn't have an issue with that. Yeah.
And just to note, the meeting following that would be the March 21st meeting.
Okay.
So again, unrelated to the site visit, but just the meeting after March 7th, just so you have that, Kelly.
It's not that long of a vacation, honest.
Sorry.
I was
I-
saying that if someone could not be present, that would be the next date.
Paul and Frank, can one of you be there on the 7th?
I can be there on the 7th.
Perfect.
Frank, you be there for do the plan master?
Yep, I should be able to be there on the 7th, yes.
Perfect. Okay. So sadly, we will miss you, Kelly, but I believe we have a motion and I believe it has been seconded to continue the public hearing for Escalante International.
Who had the second?
That was me, Rebecca. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Jim.
All right. So all those in favor of continuing, starting with Lori,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
and Rebecca, I am an I as well.
Great, thank you.
Thank
So
you.
I will be following up, as Brian said, with the commission members to individually to gather their availability. Then I will relay back to you a couple dates that the majority of the commission will be available. And then you can choose one of those dates and we can coordinate further.
Okay,
Okay.
can you give me just an idea? Do you expect that to be weekdays, weekends, mornings? late?
Weekdays typically in the afternoon, like after, I think what we've been doing is right around or just after 2:30. That's been working for the commission, but it's either in the morning or then. So
Okay,
I will double check their availability though, in the event that anything's changed.
all right, that's great, thanks. Just try and keep things flexible on my
Yep.
end.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you all.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Frank, can you turn off your share screen?
Certainly.
Thank you.
All right, Rebecca, it looks like we got through all of our updates,
Yes.
right? Do you have any additional updates? Anything else we need to be aware of at this time?
I do not.
All right, commission members, anyone have any new business? Or any dirty limericks they want to share? Seeing none, I would like to make a motion that we hereby adjourn the Tuesday, February 21st, 2023 meeting of the Bolton Conservation Commission. Do I hear a second for adjourning?
Second.
All right, all those in favor, starting with Lori,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
Jim,
I,
and Rebecca, I am an aye as well.
Recording stopped.
All right,
Great.
thank you all.
Thank you all. Have a great evening. Please, I will be